I traveled to Israel a week ago to establish a strong, informal diplomatic channel between Israel and the people of South Africa.
רק באתי להגיד לכם שבשם יהדות דרום אפריקה שאנחנו איתכם בזה.
I conveyed a message to the government and the people of Israel on behalf of the South African Jewish community, as well as millions of our fellow citizens throughout the country, that the ANC government does not speak in our name.
אז מה שהממשלה עושה זה לא בשם האוכלוסייה, בדרך כלל בדרום אפריקה הם אנשים שהם תומכים בישראל דווקא.
That we stand shoulder to shoulder with Israel in this battle against the forces of evil. Given the hostility of the South African government, the withdrawal of the Israeli ambassador to South Africa, and the total breakdown of communication between the two governments, I personally reached out and relayed this message in direct meetings with President Isaac Herzog and with cabinet ministers, with Foreign Affairs Minister Yisrael Katz and the Minister of Diaspora Affairs and Anti-Semitism, Amichai Shikli. As I sat down with each of them, I reassured them that despite the ANC government's morally repugnant support for Hamas and Iran, most South Africans distanced themselves from the ANC's position.
התקפתי מאוד בתוקף נגד ממשלת דרום אפריקה, ואני אמרתי בכמה נאומים שמה שהם עושים זה לא מטעם האוכלוסייה בדרום אפריקה. צריכים להבין כאילו הרמת האנטישמיות ברחובות בדרום אפריקה זה מהכי נמוכים בכל העולם.
Most South Africans are not enemies of Israel.
That millions of South African Christians pray for and support Israel. That the ANC's support has sunk to 40% and is still falling. That Israel has many allies and friends here in South Africa who are ashamed of their government's support for terrorist regimes and despots.
Terrorists are not freedom fighters.
I also went to strengthen and express our connection to Israel in other ways. I met with the El Al CEO and her senior management at their Ben Gurion offices to express the deep upset of our community about the break in the 7-decade-long relationship El Al has had with South Africa. They expressed their sympathies but assured me it was purely a commercial decision to divert planes to more lucrative routes from the US, and that they had suspended flights from Canada, Brussels and Hong Kong for the same reasons. As a community, we can no longer rely on El Al for this, and we will need to explore options with other carriers for direct flights between Israel and South Africa. Shalom Chaverim. הבאתי פה מכתבים מהילדים מדרום אפריקה. As part of strengthening and expressing our connection to Israel, מכתבים פה מדרום אפריקה, מהילדים מדרום אפריקה. I brought a box of more than 1,000 letters of love and support written by primary school children from our community, addressed to the brave soldiers and people of Israel. Dear soldier, please help win the war. You're so brave. כדי להגיד תודה לכל החיילים למה שאתם עושים בעד עם ישראל. Expressing gratitude and appreciation for their great self-sacrifice. כדי להגיד תודה מהיהודים, כן, להגיד תודה לכל מה שאתם עושים בעד עם ישראל. להגיד תודה לכל מה שאתם עושים בשביל עם ישראל.
תהיה בריא, חביבי.
I gave most of the letters to soldiers at rest stations down south, near the Gaza border, at Shuva and Tzomet Gilat. The soldiers coming to eat, they're going to read the letters as more, and there are thousands who come through here every single day.
Thank you so much.
I gave letters to wounded soldiers at Tel HaShomer Hospital. Many of these soldiers have a long road ahead to recovery, multiple operations, months and months of rehab to return to a form of normal functioning. They will carry wounds, both physical and emotional, with them forever. And the letters brought light into their lives.
כל הכבוד לכם.
תודה.
אתם באים
כן.
לחזק אותנו.
כן. The letters I brought with me warmed the hearts of soldiers. It gave them incredible strength to know that at this difficult time, Jews across the ocean stand with them and admire them so much, that we appreciate everything they are doing to fight not just on behalf of the people of Israel and to secure the borders of the Jewish state, but to prevent another Holocaust and to defend Jews everywhere.
תודה רבה לכל הילדים של דרום אפריקה, שימחתם וריגשתם אותנו מאוד. תודה רבה.
I also came to Israel to bear witness to the darkness of the evil perpetrated on October 7.
אפשר לנעול אותו.
I went down south to visit 3 of the 22 kibbutzim and towns that were attacked, Be'eri, Kfar Aza, Kisufim, to see the devastation for myself.
Look at the bullet holes in the roof.
It's a grenade. None of the articles and footage I had seen could prepare me for the horror of encountering what took place firsthand.
This says here, human remains on the couch.
From the street in Kfar Aza, almost everybody was murdered or kidnapped.
Seeing the burnt out homes and then imagining the thousands of savage Hamas terrorists who overran these peaceful kibbutzim, massacring entire families in the most brutal way.
You see this photograph there of this beautiful family. They were all murdered and they were discovered burnt alive. They were burnt. They were all burnt inside their secure room. This is not the scene of a battle. This is just the scene of a pogrom, of people coming in to murder as many Jews as they could possibly do. Just a killing frenzy. The terrorists stormed into ordinary people's homes with hand grenades, RPGs and AK-47s. And when they couldn't get into safe rooms, a feature of daily life even during the relatively peaceful times due to the incessant rocket fire from Gaza, they simply set fire to the homes, burning people alive. It's just like horrifying here because here you have people trapped inside the security room here and it's like being burnt alive inside a security room. It's like turn it into an oven.
Victims, including babies and young children, burnt beyond recognition. In some cases, it took weeks to identify the remains, with forensic archaeologists sifting through the ash. The terrorists even booby-trapped dead bodies to try and kill funeral workers who touched the bodies.
The IDF would come in and they would see a body and you would lift it up and there would be grenades underneath it. They would take out the pin and they would just put it underneath, and as you pick up the body, it would explode. Wow. So they were causing like incident after incident after incident. So
I heard testimony about how the terrorists were then bolstered by a second wave of attackers, Gazan civilians who poured across the border once they heard about the attacks and came to continue the mayhem. They weren't ordinary looters and they had no interest in taking material possessions. They came with the sole intention of inflicting more bloodshed, more violence, more rape, more murder.
There were Gazans that were not associated or affiliated with Hamas in any way. And they come in here, some of them women, young people, even elderly. A lot of the murdering, the raping, the sexual assault, and the kidnapping was done by them.
According to eyewitness accounts, the second wave of attacks committed even worse atrocities than the first. I saw the homes from which 8-year-old Emily Hand and 4-year-old Avigal Idan were kidnapped, both of them without their parents.
Just beyond.
I felt a deep sense of the pain and suffering, the bereavement and loss, the horror and savagery that was October 7.
The 280 casualties, I would say 80% was tortured. We found them in Be'eri. 2 piles of 10 children each were tied to the back, burned to death.
I heard from survivors how the Hamas attackers methodically hunted their victims. Detailed maps of the kibbutzim and lists of names of the residents were found on the bodies of those terrorists who were killed in the aftermath. They knew who was in charge of security, where the weapons were kept, where the generator was housed, where every family and community center in the town was. This detailed intelligence had a shocking specificity because it came directly from Gazans who had worked in the kibbutzim, some for many years. They had earned the trust of those who lived there, the kind, gentle people they worked for, and then they betrayed that trust in the most brutal, unimaginable way. The victims in these kibbutzim were peace-loving people. They believed in peaceful coexistence with their neighbors in Gaza. They were so trusting, so unaware of the dangers around them, oblivious to the fact that their neighbors were plotting their murder. In Be'eri, I went into the burnt-out remains of the home of Vivian Silva.
you still have a sink here with literally all the dishes still inside.
Who dedicated her life to helping the people of Gaza, running job training programs on the kibbutz and ensuring workers were paid a fair wage, In her spare time, she personally ferried patients from Gaza across the border who were traveling to Jerusalem for medical treatment.
Vivian Silver had co-founded the Arab Jewish Center for Equality, Empowerment and Cooperation and was a member of Women Wage Peace.
She did a lot for, she was a freedom fighter.
We've been told that only war will bring peace. We don't believe that anymore. It's been proven that it's not true.
Vivian Silver was burnt alive on October 7. She came into the security room here and the terrorists burnt the house down, burnt the security room, and she was trapped in here. This is where she died. And it actually took Zaka and everybody like 2 months, to find her remains. They didn't know what had happened to her. It's just total carnage and mayhem. It's just shocking. While I was in Israel, I visited Hostage Square in Tel Aviv and spoke to a group of families of the hostages still being held by the barbaric Hamas terrorists. I told them that our hearts are with them, that we feel their pain, and that we are praying desperately for the safe return of their loved ones.
התקפתי בחוזק נגד ממשלת דרום אפריקה בכל מה שיש לי, דיברתי נגדם, הורדתי אותם מהתביעה לשלום המדינה כדי להביע את קולי נגד הרשות של הממשלה של דרום אפריקה. ואנחנו איתכם, אנחנו מתפללים בעדכם כאיש אחד בלב אחד.
I spent time with my dear friend, Rabbi Doron Perez, whose brave son, Daniel, is still being held hostage in Gaza. My mission on this trip was to say to the government and the people of Israel that the bond between the Jews of South Africa and Israel can never be broken. As Jews, we mention Jerusalem at every funeral, saying the special blessing to the mourners. May the Almighty comfort you amongst all of the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. At every wedding, we recite the immortal verse, "If I forget thee, O Jerusalem." 3 times a day in our prayers, we pray for the redemption of Israel and Jerusalem. And when we pray, we face in the direction of Israel. Zionism is an essential part of who we are, our identity, our soul. Our connection to Israel began almost 4,000 years ago when God spoke to Abraham at the dawn of Jewish history. As a nation, we have maintained an unbroken presence in the land for more than 3,300 years, since the time of Joshua. We have a longer connection to our land than any people on earth. Our bond with Israel is unbreakable. I can assure you that every effort will be invested in building this informal diplomatic channel between Israel and South Africa until such time as a sound official diplomatic relationship can be re-established. I do so for the sake of our Jewish community, but also for the sake of South Africa, which will benefit greatly from a closer bond with the only democracy in the Middle East. In so many areas of life where the South African government has failed its people, citizens have stood up and come forward to make a difference. Here too, with the country's connection to Israel under threat, as citizens, we must come forward, speak up, reinforce our connection to Israel. Those who can must visit to express solidarity. The current foreign policy of the ANC government to associate our country with the world's worst terrorist states and despots is not in the interests of the people of this country. South Africa can benefit so much from Israel's innovation, people, technology, and economy. And most of all, from the divine blessings that flow into South Africa from Israel, knowing the promise made to Abraham that those who bless you will be blessed. In our times, we have witnessed the divine promises fulfilled, that after 2,000 years of exile, and no nation on earth has ever survived such a protracted exile, we have returned to our biblical homeland. Just as promised in the book of Deuteronomy, V'kibetzcha mikol ha'amim asher hefitzcha Hashem Elokecha shama. Then God will gather you in from all the nations. And if you're dispersed will be at the ends of heaven, from there the Lord your God will gather you, and he will take you and bring you to the land that your forefathers possessed, and you shall possess it. Our bond with Israel, forged in exile, sanctified by divine promise, will never be broken. Am Yisrael Chai, Od Avinu Chai.